So a winning start for Brechin then. Nice of the two teams to ease us in gently with a nondescript opening game of the campaign.
Aye, Ken, there was so little incident for us to get to discuss in this. I mean, it's quite hard really in a sense to know what to take out of it, because following Paul Campbell sending off, the game is skewed in a sense that for Martin, you know, as an attacking threat, we saw a lot less of them, and they had a lot less of the ball. And Brechin anyway, even 11 against 11, are a very good team at keeping the ball and sort of rotating possession. But once Martin lost Paul Campbell, they were sort of forced to be more defensive to try and take something out of the game, and I thought they were over the course. They were excellent. I mean, other than a couple of saves towards the end of the first half for Fraser McLeod, Ewan McDonald never really had a lot to do in terms of, you know, saving shots, and it always kind of had the feeling that it was going to take something like a penalty or a mistake probably for the breakthrough to come. And I mean, it'd be a sore for Martin. Brechin, I mean, credit to them, you know, the way they sort of moved the ball is very impressive. I thought in the final third they looked a wee bit rusty for whatever reason, but again, it wasn't easy because of the sort of defensive effort they were up against. But overall, I mean, they'll be pleased, relieved to start the defence of their title with a win. And for Martin, you'd have loved to have taken a point, which they could have done obviously with that header at the end, but as Stuart said, still a fair few positives to draw despite that.
You mentioned Paul Campbell's red card. Stuart Anderson didn't seem best pleased, and I think from the highlights you can see that Paul's teammates weren't very happy with the decision either, particularly the second yellow. What's your take? Was he guilty or unlucky?
It's a difficult one, because if you watch the two incidents, the first one, I think you can understand why it's a booking. He gets it, again, I don't think with either of them there's any malice in it from Paul, and he's not that type of player. But he gets up above and he just does sort of catch Michael MacArthur with the elbow and forearm, and I think everyone on the ground would probably agree that's a booking. But with the second one, I think it's completely accidental in the way when he sort of bumps Ewan Spark and his arm just sort of goes up trying to hold him off. I don't think he's ever meaning to catch him in the face. And in terms of its sort of hand on the face, it's a lot less severe than what he got his first booking for, and Greg Souters was right there and has deemed that that's a booking as well. I think sometimes, depending on who you get, they might say, you know, just watch it, but again, that was, you know, you caught him there, but I can understand, and it was accidental, and you're sort of on your last warning. But Greg felt it was a yellow card, and unfortunately for Paul, he had to go. But I mean, that's the thing, the two bookings, but they are slightly different incidents, I felt.
Ewan Loudon got the only goal of the game from the penalty spot. I think that's the one incident that perhaps was straightforward for the referee. I don't think there was any doubt there was a penalty there.
Aye, I think that was not really much needs to be said. That was a penalty, especially when you see it. The Brechin's try listing gets himself in a good position, and just one. As Rhys Thomas goes in, there's a sort of tangle of legs and he's sent over, so that was pretty routine and good penalty for Ewan Loudon.
Late drama still to come in this one, of course. For Martin go down to 9 men after Johnny Crawford is sent off after winning a free kick for his team.
Well, this is, I mean, first week of the season, don't like being critical, but I think this is poor refereeing, and for Martin and Johnny Crawford I have sympathy, because for Martin get the free kick, as you said, because Johnny Crawford sort of bumped by Michael MacArthur initially before he makes the challenge. And I can understand, in terms of the actual challenge, it's one of them now, when you go in sort of lunging in like that, a lot of the time referees will reach for a red card. But to me that's kind of by the by, because he gives for Martin the foul. I understand, or discovered afterwards, that the reason he didn't just blow up straight away was possibly because he was playing advantage for Martin. But if you look at where they are on the pitch and the players that are round about Johnny Crawford, there's absolutely no advantage whatsoever to Martin in that situation. And I mean, it's the last minute, they're down to 10 men, I'm sure as well they'd much rather have the free kick, which they eventually get to put straight in the box to try and find an equaliser. So to me there, if the referee just blows up right away and goes, that's a free kick, the whole incident never happens and Johnny Crawford isn't sent off.
A 4-1 win for Turriff United then. I present to you option number 1 for the coupon buster of the weekend for me. A great result for Turriff.
Definitely. For me, I wouldn't say it was quite as big a surprise potentially. I wasn't over.
But
maybe
4?
the score, yeah, but then when I saw the outcome, I wasn't overly surprised. I think Turriff, maybe hard to make a definitive judgment in week 1, but I think they have added quite well in the summer, and they certainly carry a threat. I mean, Neil Gold, how he just keeps on doing it. It's very easy and cliched to say, but if you give him a chance, he'll score you a goal, and he did that. Although I'm sure he'd.
Unless it's from the penalty spot.
I'm sure he'd have loved
Sorry,
to knock away the penalty as well for a hat trick against his old club. So I think clearly for him, I think motivation wasn't in short supply either. But he's done well. John Allen, not somebody we've seen in the Highland League before, but from what I saw and heard on Saturday, I was impressed with him as well. He's got a goal, and then Ewan Clark scored 17 goals last season. He's come on and scored as well. So I think with that, those players that Turriff have at the top end of the park, they're always going to be capable now of causing any team problems on their day. From an Inverurie perspective, some of the defending, I think you'd be very concerned about. The game was potentially slipping away from them by that point anyway, but the 4th goal especially is a bit of a mess, really, what happens there. And I mean, Andy Lowe's quotes as well after the game, he didn't miss his team in terms of he thinks there's still a lot of work to do, and described the performance as unacceptable. And I mean, it's clearly not the way they wanted to start the season. Clearly
worked for Locos to do, as Andy Lowe said. Option 2 for the shock of the weekend for me was Rothes 1, Huntly 4. Again, just in terms of the actual scoreline in the end.
Well, again, I would agree with you in terms of the outcome. Not massively surprised, because I mean, Huntly's last game of last season, they went up to McKessick Park and won 2-0, and they've won more emphatically on Saturday. And like Turriff, Michael Dangana had a penalty saved, which could have added further to the score. I think, again, a pleasing thing for Huntly is you see Michael Dangana scored, Lewis Crosby, new signings scored, Brodie Allen scored, Robbie Foster scored. You throw the likes of Andy Hunter, Angus Grant, Callum Murray into that sort of forward mix, and you think, well, they've also, again, got good options at the top end of the park. They were 8th last season, and again, they're one of those teams, again, like Turriff as well, looking to improve and try and make, strides up the league, and on that evidence, they could be capable of doing it. I mean, I think it's maybe easy to say at the start of the season as well, but I do think there's more sides now equipped to take points off the sides at the top of the table. And I mean, we saw that even with Huntly at times last season, like the drew with Brechin, the drew with Buckie, and clearly for Alan Hale's side, that's really good start. I mean, they also signed David Nyembwe, I believe hope that's the right pronunciation. He's been on trial with them in pre-season, a midfielder he signed before the game, so it was more good news for them. From a Rothes perspective, I know they had some players missing, but if you look down at the 11 that was started the game, you would still say that was a good side with a lot of good players and experience. Finnis, Bruce Milne, Alan McKenzie, Fraser Roberts and Alan Pollock, Greg Morrison, although he maybe wasn't fully fit, but you would say that was still a good team they put out, and to be beat in that manner, I'd say is a very underwhelming start for them.
Right, on to the late drama. There was a few more games that feature that. Clachnacudden 2, Buckie Thistle 3. A late penalty to win this one.
Well, Buckie just have this knack, don't they, of finding, I mean, for a couple of seasons now, they seem to, I mean, other teams have done it as well, but they seem to sometimes be in a league of their own, really, at finding a way to get out of jail at times late in games. But I mean, maybe I'm calling it a knack or whatever, but it is a skill. It is a skill, and it's a good sign if you can, when not at your best as well, if you can keep finding a way to dig out a result. And I mean, first game of the season, there's been a few managers saying it as well. The main thing you want to try and get off to a good start. And although Graham Stewart was unhappy with the performance, they've picked up the result, which was the main thing. I think for Clach, and I've spoken maybe to Jordan McDonald about this before as well, is again, you maybe see the good and the bad of Clach on Saturday, in that they've played well, they've scored 2 goals in quick succession. Harry Henham, who they've got back on loan again this season from Inverness Cully Thistle, he's set up the first for Gary Warren. He scored one himself, which by all accounts was a great finish. And you think they're doing all the right things that could cause a bit of a shock and get a really good win, and then things have gone against them, and then they've lost it right at the end with Callum Black's handball, and he's been sent off. And positives to take for Clach, but as they've said, like, you don't want to keep being the sort of plucky loser all the time. Like, but I think on that evidence and the way they've played, you'd think before too long they will potentially take a scalp or two, and maybe against teams round about them as well, they'll have a bit more joy. So I think it's one of them in some regards in terms of performance. They were Clach were maybe happier than Buckie, but ultimately Buckie side that want to be up there challenging, they've got the job done.
A late show at Station Park as well. Nairn County 0, Brora Rangers 1, and a super sub appearance to win it.
Well, a bit of a surprise maybe to some people that Andy McRae wasn't starting the game, but that probably shows the options and the depth that Brora have got in the final third as well, that you're able to bring a player like Andy off the bench. And I think he might have been slightly relieved actually to pop up with that winner, because he had about 15 minutes earlier he had quite a good chance, which probably 8-9 times out of 10 he would bury. Dylan McLean made a really good save actually, so then I'm sure he'd been chuffed and relieved that he was able to stick away that clincher in stoppage time. I mean, for Nairn, it's a sore one, because I mean, first half, I think from what I've heard, Brora probably had the better with Jordan McRae hit the post and things, but second half Nairn had chances themselves, and it was a game that sort of going into the closing stages, either side could have won it, and unfortunately for Nairn, they've come out on the wrong side of it. But again, I'm sure they could be heartened by the performance, but it's still, when you, like anything, when you lose a goal late in the day and it costs you, it's obviously a bit of a sickener.
Another super sub display from Sean Butcher. He came on at half time for Fraserburgh as they were trailing 1-0 to Lossiemouth, to then score a hat-trick and win the game 3-1 for his side. Yeah,
the first thing to say about this game is the goal of the game, I think, to be fair, was scored by Lossie. Dean Stewart, my apologies. Dean Stewart's free kick was an absolute peach. I've seen it, and it's a terrific strike past Joe Barber. And Lossie, I think Frank McGettrick was impressed with their first half performance. He felt they were well in the game, competed well, and maybe perhaps worthy of their lead. But second half, introduction of Sean Butcher playing down the slope as well as they like to do at Belsley in the second half. Fraserburgh put on the pressure, and I mean, Frank said that Brock deserved to win. And speaking to Mark Cowie, his sort of feeling was that if they could get one to get back on terms, they would then go on, and that's what's happened. And I mean, Sean Butcher, I'm sure hadn't been best pleased at being left out of the starting 11, but he's certainly come on and done the job for his team with a hat-trick. And I thought it was an interesting point Mark also made after the game, is he'd said to his players that with the new rule this season that you can use 5 subs, the squad's more important than ever, and everyone will have opportunities to contribute. So he was sort of saying, even if you're annoyed not to be starting, you need to sort of park that and be ready, because there'll be games where you'll need the subs to come on and change the game, and that's exactly what Sean Butcher's done.
Biggest winning margin of the opening weekend was at Spain Park. Banks of D4, Wick Academy 0. the D have always been strong at home, haven't they?
It's never an easy game for anyone there. I mean, they were top of the table before a ball was kicked because the alphabetical order, and they're still top after the first weekend. But I mean, I think, again, it's funny, but I think both sides, in a sense, Wick obviously wouldn't like losing, but I think in a sense they were reasonably satisfied. Banks of D, because they've got off to a winning start, they've kept a clean sheet, and Max Alexander has come on, and another super sub, but he's come on and scored 2 goals. But he's almost in a way like a new signing for Banks of D, because last season he had a knee operation, and then when he was coming back from that, he'd various niggles and things. So I don't think we ever saw the best of Max. Last season, he's a versatile player in terms of midfielder, further forward, and he's almost like the cliche, like a new signing for Banks of D. For Wick, I mean, Gary Manson they were badly short in the forward areas for like Kyle Henderson, Mark McGregor, Mark McCaddy, Gordon McNabb, all unavailable for various reasons. I think there's a few of them back this weekend coming, but so for Wick it was very much kind of try and frustrate and play on the counter, and for large periods they did that, and it was only sort of in the last quarter an hour that they conceded the third and fourth, and even Magnus Watson was sent off with I think 16-17 minutes to go, and it was only 2-0, and at that point Wickham maybe you think, well, open up a wee bit, and if we could get one, you never know, but obviously didn't happen for them. But given that last season when they played Banks of D, they were beat 8-0 at home, and they were beat 6-0 at Spain Park, having lost all 6 in the first half. I think Gary was a lot happier with how they competed, and it took, a couple of goals late on to actually kill them off.
To Banff, Horace Ormsby, I think he'd been a doubt before the game, but declares himself fit and gets the only goal for a great win for the Vale. They'll be very happy to have beaten Keith 1-0 and get their season off to a winning start.
An excellent start for them. I mean, Horace Ormsby, as you said, carrying an injury. I think Craig Stewart had sort of cajoled him to play as well, and he's a really important asset for the Vale anyway, but particularly in light of the sort of sad news that's emerged as well. Dane Ballard, who's been Devon Vale's sort of talisman for a few years now and scored a lot of goals for them. From what we hear, he's damaged his cruciate ligament again, which was an injury that kept him out a long time. So he's potentially again on the sidelines for a long period, and which is a great shame for him. And we wish you the best in your recovery, Dane. But given that, Horace Ormsby potentially as well, almost playing through the middle more than wide, will be a real asset for Devon Vale, and it sounds like his goal as well was a cracker on Saturday, and that's for the Vale really, it wasn't easy at times for them last season, but that's a solid start. A clean sheet as well, always welcome. For Keith, I mean, Craig Ewan, I think in his quote said the team that deserved to win did, and he was, I think, frustrated again by just that lack of maybe creativity in the final third or poor decision making at times. And that's, I mean, I think that Keith have probably tried to improve on this season is having more of a goal threat, so that'll be a bit disappointing for them that it wasn't there on Saturday. And to jump back to the Vale as well, one last thing to mention was interesting to see Scott Thompson, who was at Lossay last season, playing for them as a trialist. Sounds like he did well and might potentially be signing for them as well, so that could be a decent move for them.
Final game, Forest Mechanics 2, Strathspey 1. The new boys coming up trumps for the Can-Cans here.
Well, it's actually new boys coming up trumps for both sides, because Ian Ross scored for Strathspey after, I think, 63 seconds or something like that it was timed at. He's a new signing as well, and from the reports we've had, Strathspey first half perhaps maybe deserved to be in front at half time, and I mean it was level, but they played very well by all accounts and caused Forrest a few problems. Second half they fell away a bit, which Robert McCormick will be hoping to address, but I think for them there's certainly encouraging signs there, although again disappointed pardon me, to lose, but I think they can take heart from that again. Last season when they went to Mossop Park, they were beat 8-1. So if you compare then to now, that's a big improvement. For Forrest, I mean, I spoke before the weekend. It's sort of big changes in their squad again, and they'll be delighted to see two of the new signings scoring. I mean, Dylan Lawrence has come as part of the Ben Barron deal on loan for Elgin, and that's a good start for him to get a goal. And Callum Frame, another, is a young player that Stephen McDonald's managed to pick up, having come out of Ross County, where I'm told he was quite prolific in their under-18s side when he was there. So for him to come into the Highland League and score on his debut's a real boost for him and for Forrest as well.